Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. This is US Home Talk. We are live every Wednesday at noon, and we're here on demand at ushometalk.com and everywhere you can find your podcasts. We are your hosts, Mike Overson with Illuminate Home Loans. I also have Jason Walgrave with Walgrave Real Estate Group and the Minnesota Real Estate Team at RE/MAX Advantage Plus. And also with us is Marcus Walgrave. He's with Hague Realtors. If you haven't caught the show before, what was that?
Marcus did the Karate Kid Sensei.
Oh, I love it. If you haven't caught the show before, this is US Home Talk. We talk anything mortgage, real estate, credit repair. We pretty much take any question, how to raise teenage daughters, all that type of fun stuff there. We've been around the block a couple times in life and in business. So we are full of knowledge, at least we think we're full of knowledge, and we can certainly here to help answer your questions.
Extra good knowledge.
What was that, Evan?
I said we're full of extra good knowledge.
Yes.
Top tier
knowledge. So we're going to be taking your questions during our show today. Anything and everything dealing with real estate, mortgages, credit repair. Again, you name it, we'll answer those questions there. You can call in during the show. Call-in number is 612-234-7585. You can also type in your questions into the Facebook feed if you want to, and we'll answer them that way. And we'll also be answering any questions that came in throughout the week from our listeners or from our clients. Those come in via text or via our hotline during the week. Again, that phone number, you can text or call 612-234-7585. Jason and myself, we're up in the Minneapolis area. So we're in suburbs just south of Minneapolis there. Marcus is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, one of the greatest states in the country. Welcome, boys.
Good to be here. Good to be.
All right, we're going to talk. We do have a show topic today that we're going to dive into here a little bit. Again, any questions that come up, definitely feel free to reach out to us. We'll answer those questions during the show. We like to make this interactive. So feel free to reach out to us, again, via that phone number, which is 612-234-7585, or in the comment section in Facebook there. All right, show topic today. We are going to talk about the 5 biggest costs of timing the market. So we have all heard about it. I'm trying to time the market for one of two things: for home prices to come down, or I'm going to time the market when interest rates come down. Mm-hmm. Can be two big mistakes, if you're looking to buy a house. We're going to cover the 5 most costly mistakes that trying to time the market can cost you here. So number 1, homes will likely be more expensive if you wait. Mm-hmm. So I'll have Jason and Marcus comment on that. So if we compare home prices to, typically when someone's waiting, right, it's like, do I buy today? Do I sign another year lease? So we usually look at what it looks like today, and we look at a year down the road. What's your guys' thoughts as far as home pricing goes?
Well, I think there's no question that home prices are going to continue to go up. We always look at historical data, and if you look at the last 40 years, home values have appreciated over 4% per year. So historically speaking, it's going to go up. The inventory is still at an all-time low, and so the inventory being that low, the demand is higher than ever, and so we believe that home prices are going to continue to go up. Even if you look at just this year, so the 8 months, nearly 8 months of this year, you can see how much home prices have gone up. And even though the interest rates are significantly higher this year than they were last year, we've still seen values continue to go up.
I think one thing that's interesting, right? I mean, we can always kind of give our opinion on what's going on, and if you're looking for maybe some bigger players with some a little bit more knowledge, right? I just saw a couple days ago Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway portfolio holdings that they just declared. They went ahead and made a $1.36 billion bet. They purchased stocks in the 4 of the nation's largest builders. So I mean, if you're looking for, some bigger indicators on what's going to happen with real estate, well, I mean, I think it'd be safe to say that if Warren Buffett is buying stock in our nation's large volume builders, it's probably a good sign that's what you're going to see in real estate. I mean, if he's buying, then it's probably meaning that it's going to be going up here in the near future. I mean, obviously he's not always right, but he seems to make some good decisions.
Yes. Yeah, agree. I did. I saw that yesterday, the day before. So I talked about that huge purchase that they made and just investing in home builders and residential home builders. And so it is, and even if you go back to, 07, 08, 09, the crash, right? The real estate crash, those top builders, they continued to build right through it. They built through the real estate crash. They built through the Great Recession that we had. The national builders have such a huge footprint, and they're able to, I mean, they're able to essentially build themselves out of a bad market. Buffett likely understands that. He's not going to be investing $1 billion plus into something he doesn't think is going to win next year or the year after. And so it's a great point, Marcus. I mean, although the three of us are, arguably some of the smartest real estate brains on the planet, we can always, look to those that have just a couple more years experience and see what they're doing.
That D.R. Horton was what the majority of his investment, was going towards, in terms of home builders. So
yeah, they're America's #1 home builder. They have been for over a decade. So they're building a whole lot of houses.
Yeah.
D.R. Horton, they're bigger than Lennar on a national scale.
They are. Yep. Horton's #1. I think Lennar might be #2. But Horton is #1. It has been for many, many years.
Lennar was one of the other home builders that Berkshire Hathaway invested in, was Lennar, and NVR was a third. I don't quite remember who the fourth one is, and kind of having a hard time finding it. But
who was the third one?
There were four. NVR.
NVR. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them, but playing devil's advocate here for you two, with interest rates where they're at, how can you say that home prices are going to continue to go up? If home prices continue to go up and interest rates stay where they're at, how is anyone going to afford any housing? How are any sales going to happen?
Well, it's because the inventory is so low, and so I think, that demand, regardless of the interest rates or the prices, is going to continue to be there. I mean, we talk about a normal, or what we consider a healthy market in the Twin Cities as far as listings is going to be somewhere around 21,000 listings, and we're sitting at like 6,000, or 7,000 listings. Is a long way to go until we get to what we consider a healthy market. And the reality is people they need a place to live. The rental market vacancy rates are at an all-time low. They're less than 2% vacancy rate on rental properties. There isn't enough housing, period, across the board. And so, folks need a place to live, even with the higher interest rates. And we'll talk more about the interest rates. And look, guys, if they're sitting at 7-ish or somewhere around that right now, that still is less than what the 40-year average is. It's 8.25. And when I looked at a map that kind of mapped out interest rates, and so I got in the business in '99, and in 2000, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was 8.62. So a little more than 8.5. And I don't recall anybody at that time, really talking about the interest rates. I mean, that's just what it was. And so if we can get back down to the low 6s and I mean, mid 5s, we're going to be doing fantastic. And I think rates are going to come down. I don't know if it'll be this year or if it'll be next spring, but I do think rates are going to come back down. And then that's going to spark even more demand and, more multiple offers. And Mike, you run those numbers all the time. Well, if you wait, on a $400,000 house, you wait a year, it's going to cost you an extra $16,000. You can always refinance next year if the rates go down. So it allows you to lock into today's price. And then if rates go down, which we think they're going to, then you just do a refinance.
Right, exactly. Another thing to look at too here is, the average age of a home buyer is 33 years old. Okay. You go back 33 years and look at the birth rates, right? You look at the birth rates 33 years ago, because those people born 33 years ago, those are your home buyers today. You look at those birth rates compared to the amount of new homes that are being constructed, and those birth rates far outpace the building pace that's going on. So you have that many more people entering the market to buy. But as we already know, the inventory is low, and our inventory is not going to catch up because they can't build them fast enough right now.
Right. Right.
So that's another thing to look at is like, a lot of people are like, well, it's got to catch up at some point, right? Maybe at some point. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, though. I think we got several years of low inventory before we get anything that even is close to resembling some sort of balanced market.
Yep, I agree. I think we're 5+ years.
Or even more. I mean, I think the wild card is the baby boomers. I mean, they're such a huge player in residential real estate right now. And Jason, you kind of mentioned this last week about, baby boomers are the vast majority of them are in that financial position where, they have this home that they raised their family in. They might be getting close to wanting to downsize, or maybe get rid of the 2-story and get like a 0 entry ranch just to make, a life a little bit easier. But they're savvy and they have a ton of money. They sitting on cash. It's not likely that they're going to just say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and walk away from our 2.75 30-year mortgage that we refinanced, or maybe it was like a 1.9 15-year mortgage. They're savvy people. They're a savvy demographical group. There's a chance that they're going to sit on those homes and they're going to keep them. And if that's the case, then I don't see like an inventory being fixed in 5 years. I mean, it could be 10 years. It could be to where they're getting more closer to like, hey, we're at the age of our life now where we're not interested in having a rental property. Maybe they're even going to go ahead and part ways and sell their real estate portfolio. That's probably in my opinion, that's probably the event where we do finally see some inventory relief.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a good point, Marcus. That demographic, they've got a ton of equity in their homes. Right. And so if they do decide to sell, doesn't matter what the interest rates are, they're paying cash anyway, and because if they've got a big, 2-story home, for example, they're probably going to downsize into, maybe a Rambler or something that's not going to be as expensive. And they've got all this cash. So it doesn't matter what the interest rates do. They've got cash because they have all this equity. They're going to use that equity to downsize. And then, it's just and again, the inventory is going to be the number one thing that drives prices and values, and the high demand because we have such low inventory.
Yeah, all good comments here. So that was the number one biggest cost of timing the market. If you wait to time the market, homes will be more expensive. Let's go to number 2 here. So number 2 biggest reason or biggest cost of someone trying to time the market is rents will be higher.
Mm-hmm.
So
rents will definitely be higher.
Yeah, they're going to go higher. So you're going to pay more for rent over the next 12 months. Again, we usually compare what it looks like today versus 12 months down the road, because when someone's like, hey, I have 2 choices, I can either sign another year lease or I can buy a home. That's why we do the year comparison. So again, rents today are X. They're expected, I think, to go up. This report here is saying that I'm looking at are expected to go up 8.85% over the next 12 months.
I mean, that adds up.
Yeah, it definitely adds up. But I think, a lot of people need to understand too. I mean, just look at the big picture, right? If you have an entity that owns, multiple rental properties, maybe several large apartment complexes, salaries have been on the rise. People's salaries are increasing. If the Federal Reserve is able to achieve what they want to do and reduce inflation, well, that means that with these individuals who have a larger salary, their salary has increased here in the recent years, and then the cost of living is becoming more affordable because inflation goes down. It's not like, okay, hey, we're gonna start giving everybody discounts on their rent. That's not going to happen. They're going to say, hey, we know you have more money because the cost of living has come down because inflation has come down. So we're not going to drop rent. If anything, we may even consider bringing it up a little bit because we know you can afford it. I mean, that's a realistic big picture of how, commercial real estate, is going to work for those individuals.
And when you buy a house and you do a 30-year fixed mortgage, you lock into that principal and interest payment. You're locked in. We know that rents are going to double at least every 20 years. And realistically, they probably doubled in the last 12 years because rents have gone up so much in the last number of years. So you lock into your payment. Again, the interest rate, it is what it is, right? But at least what that principal and interest payment's going to be for the next 30 years. Your rent's going to go up 5+% every year, at minimum. And so if you're paying a couple grand a month, it's going to cost you another $100 a month next year. And if it goes up 8%, like Mike's talking, now we're talking $160 a month more, starting next year. So you definitely have an opportunity to lock into a payment with a little bit more security. Your property taxes are going to go up every year, and your homeowner's insurance is going to go up a little bit every year too. But that main portion of your payment is going to be locked, and I think that's important. It gives people comfort.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now we get to the flip side of that coin. Reason number 3 for the 5 biggest costs of time in the market, you miss out on home equity. So now if you sign that year lease again, not only you're going to be paying more in rent over the next 12 months, you're going to be missing out on the equity that you could be gaining on that home in the next 12 months.
Yeah. The equity and the additional tax advantages of owning real estate, you've got some tax benefits and some write-offs that come along with it. It is, and I tell you what, there was mixed reviews last fall. Going into the winter, there was a handful of folks that are saying, "Yep, prices are going to go down." Prices are going to go down, and because the rates went up so much, and prices did not go down this year, guys, and I don't believe they're going to go down next year either. And so gives you an opportunity to build some wealth through real estate. It's we talk about it as forced savings because a part of that payment is paying down the principal of that loan, and so it's another great example.
That always kind of falls into I like to bring up the clickbait term. And that's just kind of what it comes down to, right? I mean, were there some markets, were there some price ranges, specific price ranges in specific markets where prices did come down? Yeah, I'm sure that's the case, right? I mean, when you kind of see like big tech companies pulling out of San Francisco or out of California, moving to Texas, I'm sure if they left those specific markets may have seen some prices come down in the luxury high end, the highest end market. But I mean, when you're talking about as a whole, especially I'm going to speak specifically for Sioux Falls. I mean, we did not see that in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota market.
Right.
Yeah, you get your seasonal. So up here in the upper Midwest, you get your seasonal declines, right? I mean, if you ask anyone up here who's bought a house in the last 5 years or any real estate agent works up here, what happens in the spring? Typically activity goes up, right? Then buyer competition goes up and homes sell for a little bit more. What happens in the winter? Typically less buyers, right? It's the middle of the winter. Some people don't want to go outside and look at homes. Some people don't want to buy homes if it's, the yard's covered in snow. If the house and the roof is covered in snow, they want to wait for that snow to melt and stuff so they can see everything. And so things slow down a little bit in the winter. So you get the seasonal, might get a 1 or 2% drop in home prices in the winter, and you might get a 3 to 4 to 6% increase in the spring, and those seasonal changes will always be there, whether the market's up, the market's down, or whatever. You're going to see the seasonal ebbs and flows. But we did not see the home prices are going to come down 10% because of interest rates deal. We didn't see
Right.
that, and we're not going to see it again coming up.
Nope.
Okay, number 4. So let's go to number 4. So this again, we're talking about the 5 biggest costs of timing the market. Number 1 was homes will be more expensive. Number 2, rents will be higher. 3, you'll miss out on home equity. Number 4 is you could lose the ability to negotiate. And this is probably this is the one that probably doesn't hit a lot of people's radar until you talk about it and you explain it, and then the light bulb goes off. Right? So you guys want to talk about that?
Marcus?
When you kind of look at the negotiating too, and I'm using that reference of if you did sign a 12-month lease, right? You're kind of have put yourself in a position where you have to make this move in this specific time. And if you read your lease agreement, I mean, yes, you can get out of your lease, but it is going to cost you, and in some cases, thousands and thousands of dollars to get out of a lease agreement. So I mean that could just be one factor in itself in terms of like, hey, I'm locked into my lease agreement for 12 months. That means I'm out in June of 2024. Well, from now until June, if there is a great deal that comes across, or if you're getting property alerts from your real estate professional, and that perfect house comes across, well, guess what? It's that plus the pulling out of your lease agreement. There's gonna have to be probably a minimum of like a 3 or 4 month where you're gonna have to pay 3 or 4 months to get out of it. In some cases, you just simply have to be make good on it and pay all of it up front. So I mean that just adds additional cost to your purchasing.
Yeah, and look, guys, if you look at how wild the market is right now, we got a ton of multiple offers. We got, there's a lot of action. It's still a seller's market. It's a hot market. We're seeing sellers a little bit more open to, definitely open to inspections, where a year ago that you didn't even talk about an inspection if you wanted a chance at winning in multiple offers, and they're even open to some closing costs and buying, paying for some points to buy down that rate for the buyer. But if that's the market we're in right now, and there's that much competition, imagine what it'll be like if the rates do go down a point or 2 points, because there are a buyer pool out there that is just saying, I don't care, I'm not buying until the rates get into the 5s. And now all of a sudden you have all those additional buyers entering the market. You've got more competition, which means you have less negotiating power. You have less likelihood of the seller participating in any of your closing costs, or maybe even the ability to do an inspection. So, waiting, that can be a huge cost in waiting, is you definitely could have less negotiating power as a buyer.
That's the thing. It's the whole everyone jumping into the pool at the same time, right? We do have buyers sitting on the sidelines. I can grab a stack right here of pre-approved buyers that I have. I probably got 30 or 40 of them, right? And they're all waiting for something. It could be just, they're specific. They want to be in this particular neighborhood or in this school district, so they're waiting for that. So they're not necessarily waiting for rates to come down, or they're waiting for home prices to come down. They're just waiting for the actual right house to come along. Yeah. There's also people, like Jason mentioned, that are waiting for home prices to come down or interest rates to come down. As soon as they get to a certain level, boom, now we're going to be really hot and heavy and looking. Well, guess what? Out of my 30 buyers there, if they all jump back in the pool, there's odds are you're going to be back into a multiple offer situation, that they're going to be looking at the same houses that you are, thinking the same thing. Well, now just what happened, right? Now you're going to be, let's say it was a home price that came down, right? Home price came down. So next year, home price went from the one you're looking at from 375 and it's dropped to 345, let's say. Okay. So it decreased in 30 grand in price. Well, now instead of making an offer on it today, at 375, maybe negotiating it down to 365 or something like that and getting it at 365, that house is now listed at 345. Now there's 5 offers on there. Right. Now, guess what happens? Oh, what's the next person going to offer? We really like this house. Yeah. This is the one we want, right? Hey, Mr. Real Estate Agent, how far do we need to go over on this one? Well, you're likely going to have to go 20 or 25 over in order to get it. but you could still be riding the line. Well, let's go 30 over to get it just to make sure. Well,
Right.
you're back to 375. You're paying 375 for the house,
Yes.
right? So to Jason's point, that's what's going to happen if rates do if rates do come down quickly and they get into the five somewhere, it's going to be a feeding frenzy. It's going to be like someone threw a steak in the the Amazon River and piranha are just eating it up, right? It would be the best for our market, in my opinion, if it's a slow drop to 5.5%, because you're going to have some people jump on the train along the way, right? A slow drop versus if it's a quick drop, now you have everyone jumping in at the same time. And then it's going to create the 30, 40 grand over list price stuff. It's going to create now you can't make an offer with a home inspection anymore. It's going to create that huge buyer competition.
I think back 2 years ago, right? And Mike and Marcus, I know you had these conversations with buyers too, but some of them were, when the rates were, mid fours, that these buyers, some buyers are like, well, I when it gets to 3.9, and then it got into the threes, and then it's like mid threes. Yeah, you know what? I don't think we're quite where I want it to be yet, and then it's 3.25, and then it's 3, and then it's, you know what? When I get into the twos on a 30-year fixed, then I'm gonna buy. And it's wild to think about that right now, right? Like 30-year. Tani and our oldest daughter, she bought a house 2 years ago. Her 30-year fixed rate is 2.875. And so it is. It's just it's wild how trying to time the market can really bite you and really hurt you in the long run. And so we're trying to help you prevent that.
If you are a home buyer out there and you're looking to get some empathy from the other generations, you'll get it in terms of like the experience that you're going through with low inventory. I think that's unique. Everybody kind of feels you. Feels kind of that hey, you definitely are during a tough time, but that you definitely are not getting any sympathy for the interest rates. Again, we'll jump back to the baby boomers and how many times have you heard that generation speak of, we bought our first house at a 15, 16, 17, 18% mortgage rate. And so when you hear anybody saying, oh my goodness, it's high sixes, I don't think too many people who've had a chance to own some real estate, they're not giving you too much sympathy because they know that it could be much higher.
Right.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I bet I hear that, Marcus. I bet I hear that comment at least every other month from somebody. Right? They're like, "Hey, I remember when I bought my first house, we were 14%." It's still a very vivid memory for many people.
Yeah, then you're telling them, where are you guys at? Oh, it's at 675 now. Big deal. Rub some dirt on it. Like, you know what I mean? Right. It's like try 14% on for and then come back and talk to me. That type of deal. All right, so the last one here of the 5 biggest costs of time in the market. This is something that just doesn't get talked about, but it's always something that could very well happen is interest rates could increase even more. We always talk about interest rates. We see interest rates going down, right? So we see interest rates going down, but what happens if they don't? What happens if you wait? And what happens, let's say we're at 7.25 today. What happens if you sign a 12-month lease and now next year rates are at 8%?
Well, what it means, and we give out a simple formula, right? If rates go up 1%, it decreases your buying power by 10%. And so if today you're qualified for a $400,000 mortgage and that rate goes up 1%, now you're only qualified for a 360 mortgage or a 360 purchase price. If it goes up 2 points, now you're talking about 320. 320 compared to 400,000. That might mean a townhome instead of a single family home. It might mean a whole different neighborhood, a whole different school district. And so, it's a great point, Mike. Could rates go up? Sure they could. Sure they could. We didn't think they were going to go up as high as they are right now, and they did. And so rates go up, it decreases your buying power, which likely decreases your options. And so it's a great point.
It
Yeah.
just kind of goes back to this as well, though, Mike. I mean, my comment about the rent not going down, right? It's household income is on the rise. If the Federal Reserve is able to get a handle on inflation and that does come down, well, those costs are going to come down. So if you look at those two, it's like, yeah, the buyer, the future buyer, with these factors likely to continue to happen, household incomes rising, inflation coming down, they're going to have more money, and it's going to go into a higher interest rate mortgage payment, and it's going to be, in a sense, kind of the same. In my opinion, it's going to be the same environment that we have today. It's just going to look a little bit different, but it's going to feel the same for people financially. So it's a lot of the forecasters were saying they're definitely coming down by the end of this year. I'm sure it's going to happen maybe in a month, a 4-6 week period where it does come down. But I mean, I think it's I've been now reading reports that if we are able to get inflation under control, it is likely to rear its head again next year. Sometime next year, it's going to come up, and they're like, "Oh, we got to jump on it again," and make some activity, make some moves. And if that's the case, I mean, I think that's what we're going to see. So,
Well, you specifically looking this year versus next year, what happens next year? Election
year,
right? So now everyone's like, if you want some stability, you would buy this year. If you want some instability on, who knows what's going to happen election year. A lot of people are like, oh, election year, it's going to affect this, it's going to affect that. Maybe it doesn't do anything. Maybe it does a lot. You don't know, but there's a lot of talks about how the election year might shift interest rates one way or the other. They might shift housing one way or the other. You just kind of never know. So you throw the election year into next year with, questions about, where's inflation at, next year and things like that. Could be an interesting year next year for all of us.
Yes.
So, all right. So those are the 5 topics. So the 5 biggest costs of time in the market. So we spoke about homes will be more expensive. Rents will be higher. You'll miss out on home equity. You could lose the ability to negotiate. And then, interest rates, they could increase even more. I don't think it's going to happen. But again, I was also wrong too, because I figured we'd be at like 6% right now for interest rates. And we're sitting closer to, 7, give or take the day, plus or minus a quarter or so.
Yep.
So, well, gentlemen, good show. Thanks. Thanks for joining us here. So as we come to an end of our show this week, we want to thank everyone for tuning in live, catching the podcast at a later time. You can find us anywhere you find your podcasts and on our website, ushometalk.com. We're here to help with all your real estate and financing needs here in Minnesota, South Dakota, and anywhere in the entire United States. I'm Mike Overson. On behalf of Jason Walgrave and Marcus Walgrave, we are signing off. Have a great week.